Recording from the heart of Providence, Rhode Island, you are listening to the Red Card Report podcast. If you like the show, head over to iTunes, leave us a review, and even share the podcast with your friends. Also, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button on any of your favorite podcast apps so you get all the latest updates and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in this week. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Red Card Report podcast. Fellas, today I wanted to talk about La Liga. We haven't really had the opportunity to talk about La Liga that much this year.
Or we've just been ignoring them.
Kind of,
a little bit.
We talked about them during the Champions League episodes.
We've talked about a lot of the teams here and there.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the Champions League games. But in terms of actual league play within La Liga, we haven't really touched on that at all.
Yeah, you're right.
So today I wanted to take an opportunity to hit on most of those things. In particular, I want to hit on Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and the last one I wanted to hit on was Valencia.
Okay.
Because they're a little far back in the standings this year. I think, Rui, there's a seventh?
Well, right now they're in fifth place. They're 1 point behind Getafe because they just beat
won.
Real Madrid this afternoon.
Okay.
Huge win. They really needed that because there's only just a few games left.
Right.
And, Real Madrid is
you need all the points you can get. Yeah.
Zidane is back. And what a way to really claw your way back into contention to fourth place. And in my opinion, I think that there's a good shot for them to make it.
In fourth. Well, who do you want to start off with first, Dylan?
Well, might as well just get Barcelona out of the way first.
Okay, the first place team. Yeah, sure.
First place team.
Start with the winners, or I should say, just the first place team. Yeah. Nothing's guaranteed, right?
No, and so start with Barcelona, but there's no real surprise here. Of course, they're in first place, quarterfinals for the Champions League against Manchester United coming up, and they're still in the Copa del Rey playing against Valencia. My biggest question is, do you think that they'll win the treble this year? Because I think, for me personally, I think the league is kind of a done deal. I know Atletico still mathematically could come back. Give me your thoughts. Again, my biggest question is regarding the treble, though.
Do you want to go first, Rui? Okay, I'll go first. Is the treble possible? Yeah, I think it is possible. This is Barcelona we're talking about, one of the biggest clubs on the planet. They are so well run that they can compete on all fronts every single year. But is the Champions League really within their grasp this year? I guess that's the one trophy that I think that they would have more trouble winning than the others. The Champions League is not an easy competition. It's a very difficult competition. Barcelona has a proven track record in it. I'm not saying they can't do it, but I think that they will find it a lot harder to compete on that front this year with this team, especially because they're not totally solid in defense. They're not great. They're not horrible, but they're not great. They let in plenty of goals. And against a Manchester United team that can surprise you, as we've seen, I think that they'll have their hands full in the Champions League. But if I had to give you an answer, I think that they can get a league and cup double for sure.
Yeah, no, I kind of somewhat agree. Barcelona does have that amazing track record in the Champions League. It's a really, obviously, the toughest competition to win. I mean, given the teams that are still available in the tournament, I mean, we still have to wait and see how the quarterfinals are drawn up. So they still have quite a bit. They have to play against Manchester United, who are a lot better, obviously.
Than when they started, yeah.
From when they started this year. And Porto and Liverpool are their potential next opponents, and Liverpool's a tough match. And then if I'm going to guess who's going to go through the other side of the bracket, Manchester City, Juventus, those two top teams that could really give a problem.
Problems.
Well, can cause problems for Barcelona, but Barcelona can also cause problems to them.
Yeah.
It's not really set in stone. I think Barcelona does have a really good chance of winning it because they have that track record, they have that experience. So, once it gets to the semifinals, when Barcelona, Manchester City, and Juventus, and probably Liverpool's going to go through over Porto to play against them, it's really hard to guess who's gonna go through.
We'll have a better idea then, huh?
Yeah, if I had to choose, probably Barcelona because they have the track record. But it's really hard to say. As for the league, yeah, I think it's pretty much all said and done. Yeah, they're going to play against Atletico this weekend, and if Atletico somehow win at the Camp Nou, maybe it could shake things up. But at best, it'll be 5 points with still a few games to go. It's a little. I don't see Barcelona coughing that up. And then against Valencia in the Copa del Rey, if they win the league and they're in the final at the position of at the time of the final of the Copa del Rey, I think they're going to go all out to make sure that they can win that treble.
Yeah, I think one thing.
So it's a pretty realistic shot. They've won it twice already. They're the only team to win the treble multiple times.
Yeah.
So
insane.
You can't rule them out.
I think that one thing that we both also forgot to mention, they have a certain player named Lionel Messi who has been on fire lately. What was it, the last game that they played against Villarreal? He was on the bench, right, for most of the game.
Yep.
And he came off the bench after an hour and just scored the goal, got them back in it.
He's got 32 on the year right now.
32 goals and 12 assists just in the league. That's not in all competitions. Yep. Guy's in incredible form, and I was on the road at work listening to the game, and it was incredible because I was like 4-2. They were up 4-2 Villarreal with not much time left, and I was just like, wow, this is really going to shake up.
Yeah,
this is really going to shake up the
chasing pack.
The chasing path for Atletico Madrid, because if Barcelona drop points, Atletico Madrid will be 7 points behind, and then when they play them the following week, they could narrow it down to 4.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
So I was just like, wow, this could be an exciting finish to the season. And then out of nowhere, Messi puts one away, and then Luis Suarez follows at the end of the game to level it off.
Yeah.
It's just whenever you put that guy on the pitch, it's just anything is possible.
Yep, Messi magic.
Team. He's just incredible.
Yeah,
8-goal thriller. If you can watch replays of the game, watch it. 8-goal thriller. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
personally, I don't think that they'll end up winning the treble. I actually have Manchester United upsetting them.
You just want them to
in the Champions League, so I don't think that they'll end up getting the treble. But the other two, I think that they'll secure pretty comfortably, both the league and the Copa del Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list, though, is Atletico Madrid, and they're in second place with 62 points right now. They, however, are knocked out of both the Champions League and the Copa del Rey. They were obviously knocked out by Juventus in the round of 16 a couple weeks ago, and they got knocked out by Girona for the Copa del Rey,
who they just played yesterday and won. It was a nice little nice little revenge match, I guess.
What do you guys think their chances are of catching Barcelona?
Slim to none.
Slim to none.
Yeah, I just don't see. See Barcelona just dropping these points,
yeah.
Even if they beat them in Camp Nou this weekend. I think it's obviously doable because Atletico's a really, really strong team. Even though they're not to the level that they were in the past, they're still capable of really disrupting the flow of Barcelona, and their counterattacks are deadly. Yeah, especially when they're on the defensive end, their counterattacks are that's their lifeline.
Yep.
So I think they can do it, but after that, I just don't see Barcelona coughing up this league.
Yeah, with all those games left to play, the rest of their schedule, I don't see it either.
Yeah, and they just have so much experience too, so
they can do it.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that this could be the end of an era? And I say that because Atletico Madrid has had so much success under Diego Simeone over the last few years. Is this the end of that era?
That's a really good question. If I had to give a yes or no answer, I would say yeah. I think an era is coming to a close. Diego Godin was and still is kind of the spirit of that team. You know what I mean? Like that just that talisman of what that team sort of embodied, like that defensive grit. And him leaving, that's huge. Felipe Luis, obviously another big personality in that team. Him not re-signing or leaving at the end of the season, I should say, is huge. And just the fact that some of those big names haven't put a pen to paper yet, whether or not they're waiting for a better offer from the club, if their agents are still having issues, getting more money for them to stay, or whether the club still has, enough money for them to give them a better contract. I don't know. But the fact that they haven't been totally eager to sign extensions yet definitely speaks to me of some sort of there's a change happening. There's a change in the wind, if you know what I mean.
Particularly in their defense too.
Particularly in the defense. Godin itself is huge. Oblak being uncertain and Felipe Luis, I would say those three are definitely the three key players in that.
Yeah, Oblak's not destined to leave just yet. He still has another year on his contract. I think it's the end of an era in terms of this era of Godin and Felipe Luis and Juan Fran and all the players that have been on this squad for just a long time, and the key players that made this Atletico defense arguably the greatest. Well, not the greatest, the best, and probably the most consistent that we've seen throughout the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can mention like Bayern Munich and Barcelona and Juventus, but you can really say that this team relied so much, like that area of the field was just a lot more valuable to that team than it was to any other of the teams that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is the end of an era, because all those players they're up in age, they're starting to slow down. But I don't think it's the end of Diego Simeone of being successful at the club, because the club, I think the club is actually still going to continue to do well. They're still making good decisions up in the board and trying to bring in new and young talent. They just shipped out Lucas Hernandez to Bayern Munich
for a lot of money.
Yeah, and this is money that they can go out and spend on young players or even solid stars that are willing to go and play at Atletico Madrid. My only thing is, I don't believe they can still play the same style of football where it's this parking the bus strategy, or playing not necessarily just parking the bus, because they do very well on the attack when they're on their game. I mean, we've seen in the past with Diego Costa having good seasons, even Fernando Torres and Griezmann finishing third for Ballon d'Or one year, and I think it was in 2016. He scored quite a few goals for the club, so they do get forward. But I think just the players that are leaving just meant so much to that system that it's really hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I've always told you guys, and I'm a real huge fan of Felipe Luis. I think he's been one of the most underrated fullbacks in the league. He's always been in the league, in the world.
Yeah.
And he's always just been overlooked. He's a great player.
Yeah, he is a really good player.
Defensively and getting forward. And it's hard to just find another player like that, especially nowadays where fullbacks really aren't as great as they once were before.
No, they're hot. It's a hot position to try and find, an adequate replacement, especially for someone like him. The list is very, very short.
Yeah, especially when you see that Alexandro's not really having the best year this year. Same with Marcelo.
Yep.
David Alaba is not the same player that he once was due to injuries.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to find these players and to duplicate the same system that they had. And Godin, that guy's a generational player.
Yeah, a generational defender for sure.
So I think Simeone is a great coach. I think he's capable of adjusting. I don't think he's just a defensive-minded coach. Yeah, he prefers defense, but I think he can switch it up and add a little bit more offense, more attacking style to his coaching.
Yeah, next on the list is Real Madrid, and where to begin? But right now they're sitting in third place with 57 points. They are not going to win the league. They're already out of the Champions League. They're already out of the Copa del Rey. No Ronaldo. Everyone's kind of playing like shit, or was playing like shit for a while.
Lack of depth.
Lack of depth. Solari wasn't working. So they got
Lopetegui before him.
And then Solari, which things like seemed better once he first took over, and then everything started tanking again. It's just they just cannot find their rhythm this year. They cannot find their rhythm whatsoever. And, not having Ronaldo, I think Florentino Perez is really kicking himself.
Yeah, I think he is too.
Thinking that you can lay that responsibility on Bale to bring this team back to the top. And what a huge loss he's been, especially, and also just not having the right coach. Zidane, over the beginning of the season, not being there was a huge loss because he was just so familiar with these group of players.
Do you remember why he left in the first place? Do either of you remember why he left?
I think it was just him.
Was he just tired?
He's
like, I'm tired of winning the
originally, his reason, his response was him not liking the direction. Well, not necessarily not liking the direction. He felt that Real Madrid needed to go in a different direction.
You think he knew that Ronaldo was leaving?
Yeah, he definitely knew something was not right, and I think he was afraid. I think he was just afraid of what he could have done while he was there next year without Ronaldo.
Okay.
Making other decisions like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And now that Florentino Perez is really kicking himself, they did the right decision to go back to Zidane and be like, hey, we're going to give you this and that. These are all your responsibilities. We're going to give you what you want to bring this club back because we need you. And they already put it out, 500 million euros for the offseason for them to spend on.
That's a fact too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's 500 million. So they've already signed Militao, right?
Yep, Militao from Porto. Yep.
So that's 500 million euros, not including Militao.
I believe it's not including him.
Not including him?
Yeah.
And then who knows who they could unload during the offseason.
That's what I'm curious about.
Bale, for example.
They're going to have to sell before they can buy, because they have a lot of big contracts on that team.
Somehow they have to get rid of Bale. I don't think it's going to work out over there anymore.
Yeah.
That was going to be one of my next questions was, do you think they should get rid of him?
I think they should.
Not only do you think that they should get rid of him, but who should replace him? Who else should they bring in?
That's my question. I don't know who's going to buy Bale first.
Exactly. He's just so expensive. It's going to be an expensive transfer, and it's also the wages that are going to go along with this transfer.
Yeah.
Who can actually afford this guy? And does Bale really want to leave despite getting paid so much money?
So much money.
So I think in terms of like replacements, I think Real Madrid is going to be just fine because they can buy anyone. And I really like Vinicius Jr.
Oh yeah, he's a great talent.
I think he's the future of that.
He's injured though, isn't he?
Yep, he got hurt in the Champions League against Ajax, but he's been playing great. He's really getting up and down the flanks very well, creating opportunities, cutting inside and ripping shots into the box or crosses into the box and shots at goal. I think he's going to be really something special. So it's going to take a little bit of time for him to grow and become a world-class player.
He's 18, right?
But even if they get rid of Bale, there's players like Hazard that have been on their watch. Eriksen from Tottenham, even Icardi to replace Benzema. They also need to replace Benzema because he's getting up there in age, and he's obviously not the same player that he's been over the years. So they have a lot of shoes to fill, even in the midfield as well. Where
Modric is rumored to leave, really Kroos too.
Yeah, and Kroos is wanting to leave. But another thing, James Rodriguez is still at Bayern
on loan. Yeah,
and he doesn't want to stay there, so they'll have him back for next year. He's still 28 years old. He's still a young player. He's still got quite a few years left in the tank. I think they can be a very dominant team, but they really need to work on their attack, filling in the shoes that they need to replace.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you think Bale would take a pay cut to go back to Tottenham? I don't see it happening. But
I've always wanted him to go back to Tottenham because I think that's the one thing that Tottenham's missing.
yeah, imagine if
is
they had
one
him.
of those elite type players, and I know Bale hasn't been elite like that over the last few years.
But we know what
but
he
he was-
can do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, we know what he can do. He's immensely talented. So for me, I just think he needs a change of scenery. Whatever it was, just isn't working in Real Madrid. So he needs to go somewhere else, and whether that's back to the EPL, Tottenham, whether that's I don't know, anywhere.
I don't think he'll take the pay cut.
No.
I think his just attitude is pretty poor. I think he's a little bit, tad bit arrogant.
Maybe.
And he another thing too. How
Would
can
you be
communicate
arrogant?
well with your teammates when you can't even speak the language?
Yeah, I was just about to. I was
of
thinking
the country
about
that
that.
you've been living in for 6 years.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been that long.
For
oh
6
my
years?
God, he
Yeah.
doesn't know Spanish. 6
Doesn't
years.
even understand it. There was a video put out
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago.
I think you even
He was
showed
like-
it to me.
He
yeah.
was like hanging out with like some of the teammates, and one of them was just that one that doesn't know how to speak English was saying something in Spanish, and it was directed towards Bale, and then he was like, "I have no idea what he's saying."
Yeah.
Yeah,
know?
that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit
So
of an issue.
that's gotta affect you on the field.
Yeah.
Not knowing the language and communicating with,
Yeah.
with your teammates. Even Zidane,
I
he knows very little English.
So getting his point across to Bale would be a challenge too.
Yeah.
All that combined with just overall team chemistry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going on road trips or whatever, it's just not the same. Having that language barrier, not being able to communicate with your teammates on a more intimate level because of
that barrier.
that language barrier, that makes a huge difference.
It's going to be super interesting to see how Real Madrid sort of progresses this summer. You know, with the transfer window. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what they're gonna do, and I think they're gonna be a really good team next year.
I mean, Real is always Real, so
Yeah, they'll always have these
Is
few
there-
years.
Is there anyone in particular you'd like to see them go after?
Hazard.
Yeah,
Hazard.
I would say Hazard. Even Icardi too.
Yeah, I could see.
I think Icardi would do very well in
I think he
the
would do
Spanish
well.
league. I think he would pour in a lot of goals there,
Mhm.
especially if you surround him with players like Hazard, Modric, Kroos, even
Yeah.
Vinicius Jr. I think he can really
Yeah,
pour in
do
goals
some
'cause
damage.
he scores. He scored so many goals with Inter with a team that, yeah, they've been pretty decent over the last couple of years, but
But nowhere near the service.
nowhere near the service that he'll be getting in a team like Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, one last question before we move on to Valencia. Well, what do you guys think of Zidane's performance so far since he's been hired back as the manager of Real Madrid?
How many games is he?
3.
3. That's what I thought. And he's won
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. They lost today.
Yep,
to-
they lost to Valencia today. That's always a tough game for them.
Yeah, and they were away too.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's never an easy game for either squad. Barcelona, Atletico, Real Madrid.
Yeah, one of the big
Valencia
teams.
is a good team, especially on this year. Strangely, on the defensive end, they've been incredible,
Yeah.
and this year they've been very poor on the attack.
Yeah, that is very true.
I believe it's
They
only
couldn't
31 goals that they put in this year.
Yeah, they couldn't. I remember we were having a similar conversation about them in the Champions League this year, and we were just like, they can't score. They weren't scoring goals. They kept drawing games too. I mean, maybe we should save that for when we talk about Valencia, but
No, might as well transition into that now. I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah, if you want, sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember, like I said at the beginning, that when we were talking about the Champions League, because they were in the same group as Juventus, they at the beginning of the season they just couldn't get anything together. They were a train wreck of a team. They kept drawing or
They
losing.
were very poor.
Very poor. But then come in January, like the change of the year, and they're in a totally different spot. They're what? They're in
Fifth
They're
place.
I think
place
they're in
right
fifth
now.
place now.
They haven't lost a single game in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
They've so
What
far
happened?
So far it's been 11 games. They were 6-5,
Which isn't terrible.
6 wins, 5 draws, no losses.
You're taking points in all those games. You take that any day of the week.
Absolutely, much better than what they've been doing in the first half of the season,
Mhm.
where they drew 11 times, 16 times this entire season. Now you just think about them actually performing to their expectation, to their potential, because this team does have talent, especially on the attacking side. But this year we just haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we just put like 4 of those games where they actually capitalize on their opportunities and put the game away, we're talking about 8 extra points.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Instead of 1,
They're
you're getting
probably-
3.
Yeah, they might be ahead of Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're taught that, which would be huge.
Couple of those games go the other way.
Yeah, and I believe if
Yeah.
they were in the same form as they were last season, they could have been up there in second place.
Yeah.
One of the things that's most interesting about Valencia this year is even though they do not have a shot at the league title, they are still in contention for the Europa League and then, of course, playing in the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona. What do you think Valencia will put more effort into? The Europa League or the Copa del Rey final? And which one do you think that they should put more effort into? Which one do you think that they should go after?
I would say the Europa League. Just in case if anything happens in the league where they just have a meltdown and they don't finish in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another alternative for them that could bail them out and put them in the Champions League if they do win. In my opinion, I think it's a little unlikely for them
To win the Europa League.
Yeah, because there's still Arsenal or Napoli left, and there's still Chelsea, and then there's Benfica as well, who actually do pretty well in this tournament. So I wouldn't rely on it. But if they could ever get a chance of winning, if any team could ever get a chance of winning European silverware, absolutely go for it. But on top of, aside from that, winning the Copa del Rey against Barcelona and potentially playing them again next year in the Supercopa, it's pretty sweet too.
Yeah. That's
Not only
a nice
that, but
thing.
if they could win the Copa del Rey over Barcelona, and that could be
The spoiler.
the spoiler
Of the
exactly
treble.
for the treble. That's got to
Yeah,
be pretty sweet.
That'd be pretty sweet
know.
too.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. But which one do they put more effort into? That
I mean, I would say, I would obviously say the Europa League because there's still games to play. The Copa del Rey.
it's a one-off. It's a final.
It's a final. So they're already in there. They're gonna play. I believe it's in May. So it's just one game. I'm sure that when it comes to that point, they're gonna give everything on the pitch. So to them, as of whoever, like I'm sure for Valencia fans, they prefer the European title. But now that they have the opportunity to go against Barcelona and possibly spoil the treble, yeah, I think it'd be pretty sweet if they gave everything in that game.
Yeah, in the Copa del Rey final. I'm gonna say I think that they should go all in on the Copa, just because winning over Barcelona would probably just be so sweet for them. But that's not to say that they should take it easy in the Europa League either. I don't think that. I think that they realize that too. Kind of going back to what you said, they have 2 games to play in the Europa League, so they can really give a good effort in that, as opposed to this one-off final. You know.
Yeah, and I'm not writing them. I'm not writing them off
Yeah.
for the Europa League because they really are playing much better in the second half. And now that Gonzalo Guedes seems to have gotten all of his strength back because he's been injured all year long, and you can tell.
You beat me to it. I was going to bring him up.
Damn it.
So he's been
Portuguese
playing
players.
really.
That's why it's exactly. I was excited to bring him up. It's like,
Yeah.
he's one of ours.
Yeah. We're always excited when the Portuguese do well. And today he scored a goal against Real Madrid, which was awesome. You know, and he seems like he's getting his form back. Where earlier this season, he just didn't seem like himself, and you can tell that there was something not right. He wasn't 100% physically fit, and I believe he had I don't know if it was a quad or a groin injury in around October and November, and then later on, he had a sports hernia that had to be surgically removed.
Those are never
so
fun.
he was out for 2 months after that, and he got back on the training pitch in February, and now he really seems like he's getting settled in, and he's been playing pretty well. And he was a huge factor last season to Valencia's success.
Yeah.
5 goals and 9 assists. And Valencia was a pretty respectable attacking squad last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to rule them out. I think they can do it, but it's going to be pretty tough, especially with teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, Benfica, and
all those guys.
Napoli,
Napoli.
still around.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week on the Red Card Report podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, head over to our iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. It really helps the show. Also, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button on any of your favorite podcast apps. You'll get all the latest updates and notifications. That way you'll never miss an episode of the show. Lastly, be sure to check us out and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Our Instagram and Facebook are both at Red Card Report, and our Twitter account is at RCR_podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and join us next time for another edition of the Red Card Report.